Hey guys, making a video. Never done this before. Um, my name's Perks. Some of you might know me if you're in the in-game community at all, in the Discords. You just watch my videos. What I upload is usually just progression kills of bosses I'm a part of with my groups. Um, or if I like a certain fight in a 6-man, I'll upload it and put some good music behind it, in my opinion at least. And yeah. Alright, so what I want to talk about is pretty much Lotro and what it's doing, what's it gonna do, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to talk about my frustrations with those points about it. Um, so I'm going to mention the systems in this game and how pretty much I don't like them. I don't think many people like them. I personally don't know anyone else that likes them. So yeah, let's get into it. So first system I want to talk about is going to be the virtue system. So the virtue system is basically stats on your character that you can get more of the higher the virtue is, right? And all of the virtues have a passive effect of plus mastery or plus morale. So having them all capped for the passives is a good bonus, and also having them all capped, just so you can change your build around if you want more mitts in some fight or something, or on the fly. It's always nice to have, right? And so pretty much the system is very bad because it's gotten to a level where so the experience needed just keeps going up every single level they pump out of these, and the deeds that you earn and do, if anyone does those anymore, they don't give enough to really give you good progression towards it unless you're already on top of the system. So there's there's two there's two ways to handle this. There's you you buy valors from the store, which is probably what most people do, or you stay on top of everything. Which I don't. I mean, I don't know anyone besides one person that actually stays on top of their deeding with their characters and stays on top of the virtues. And even then, those people don't have all the virtues capped. Those people only have the five capped, if that, right? So very bad system, very frustrating. There is absolutely zero talk about it, at least publicly, about it, which is, demoralizing because it's a system that doesn't really allow for alts. If you want to play your alt, you go all in, or you go this half-assed approach where you don't have some virtues and it feels pretty bad. All right, those are my gripes with the virtue system. So, yep. I'm gonna move on to the LIs in this game. So, LIs are weapons and class items that you get at what is it, like level 45, level 50, and these weapons, they pretty much level with you. Every few levels you do a reforge that gives your weapon the DPS stat that it needs for the associated level. And pretty much you just slot in these things called traceries, which just improve your DPS, your HPS, whatnot, maybe reduce your TPS in some scenarios. And for me, these things have, I wouldn't say single handedly, but they have substantially ruined loot for me in this game. Um, I mean, I don't like them They dilute the loot pool so much to the point where realistically the only thing you're getting from these instances, that when they do put instances out, I should say, is you're just getting trace trees, and it's not a good feeling. It's boring. I don't know. And I mean, they are of course half-assed with the system. Like they don't they don't work well with the game. So you have tanks, right? Which a tank wants to DPS to get aggro. That's not a thing in this game. The thing in this game is you maybe touch the mob once, get initial aggro, taunt it, your DPS go ham on it while that taunt expires, or before that taunt expires, you throw another taunt. It multiplies everyone's threat. It puts you at the top of the chain, and you hold the threat forever. Obviously, not very engaging. People don't like this. People don't want this. It's not changing in the foreseeable future. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. But I got off topic there. So back to LIs though. So the reason why they're shit for the tanking aspect is because of these things called words of power. I think the top ones on your LI, which are minus incoming damage, plus morale, plus incoming healing, plus damage or plus single target damage, plus AOE damage, plus dot, etc. All that jazz. And tanks are obviously just never ever going to pick the minus incoming damage and the incoming healing, or they're always going to pick the incoming damage and the incoming healing and whatnot. And in some cases, some tanks are forced to, for whatever reason, they are forced to pick plus target count. Pretty much all classes are forced to pick that have limited AoE, and I mean most classes do, unfortunately. And it's probably because of that that word of what are they called? Fucking words of power. Because they don't want to make it too OP, I guess, but whatever. Um, so yeah, it's just very counterintuitive to what you would typically expect from a tank. Again, that's kind of random and not the whole purpose of this point. Just that I don't like LIs. They're very boring. They're very ugly. The UI on them it's terrible. It's like not even finished. It's not scalable. It doesn't even fit on my monitor. Like, it's just bad. I don't know why they haven't fixed these issues, but they haven't. Um, and I just want I want, and I know a lot of other people want, just normal weapons that they have a cool name, right? I don't know. For example, they have a two-handed sword called fucking, I don't know, Deathbringer, right? Like, I want that over this stupid fucking Champion's two-handed sword of legends. It's just so bad. I don't like it. No one likes it. um, yeah, it's very boring loot. Don't want it. All right, next topic for ranting is going to be the stats. Stats in Lotro are very bad, and there's just too many of them. Lotro recently has done a stat rework, and what came with that was each class pretty much their main stat offers roughly the same thing for every single class now. So let's say a captain will get from might. Let's just throw these numbers out there. They'll get 3 mastery, 1 crit. A warden from agility will get 3 mastery, 1 crit. A guard with might will get 3 mastery, 1 crit. So they basically streamline the offensive values of them. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about that part. It was needed. It's a good change. Yeah. So now let's talk about the other stats. And why is there so many? Why are they useless? Right? So pretty much the only stats you will care about for any classes are going to be mastery, crit, finesse, and mitts. And I mean, you're not gonna care about this stat, but it's just a stat that you have on tanks, which is BPE, and you're just gonna have it from the trait lines. So you have it. You don't care about the stat though, like the raw number. Don't give a fuck about that shit. You'll never slot an essence with it. Um, yeah. Uh, so those are the stats you care about, right? Now for the stats that you don't care about, they are going to be, if I'm not mistaken, I could be forgetting some. It's resistance, incoming healing, and crit defense. And honestly, incoming healing is not that bad, but again, it's a stat you're never going to care about. Like, if you get a piece of gear, you're gonna, and it says 30,000 incoming healing, you're not gonna be like, yo, that's pretty nice. I'm happy I got that, right? You're never gonna say that. And then obviously resistance and crit defense. You see these on your gear, and you're just hating it. You're hating your life. You don't want it. Get off my screen type shit. Yeah. Um, and these stats are just bad because it's mostly RNG. Obviously, incoming healing isn't so, but crit defense and resistance, those stats are just RNG. Getting crit by an enemy is a very low chance, as is. And the fact that you have a lot of traits, and honestly, tanks just have a passive, like they kind of have a lot of crit defense just passively for whatever reason. It's just bad RNG. No one wants it. No one likes getting hit by it, or no one likes getting hit by a crit, right? Like, it's out of your control. You can't control it. Um, and then resistance, which I think resistance out of the two are probably the worst because you can just obviously have a chance, again, RNG, to just not take damage, or in some cases, completely avoid some mechanics and avoiding the consequence of a mechanic. So, an example of this would be from SV, which is Sarchvorn, and that is, so last boss, final phase, he will put eyes on people, and these eyes, they will deal a lot of fucking damage. They tick every so seconds, and at the end they drop a puddle on the ground, and these puddles are the next eye set that comes from him. If you have an eye and you step in that puddle, you insta die. You cannot step in them. So the mechanic is, as they're ticking, obviously the healer has to heal everyone, um, to keep everyone healthy. And when they drop the puddle, and they deal a lot of damage on the person when they drop. So where resistance comes into play is the mechanic will go out. You can either resist the eye on you, so you won't get the eye, you won't get the ticking of it, you won't get the puddle drop, you won't get any of it. You can either get it, resist all the ticks of it, so you take no damage, drop the puddle, take damage, drop the puddle, or you can get hit with the eye, take every tick of it, and not drop the puddle. You resist the puddle drop. And it's just a dumb stat. I don't know how the devs of this game design fights and mechanics around this stat when you can just outright completely avoid a mechanic or completely avoid the damage from the mechanic. It's just I don't see a saving grace for this stat. I think it needs to be deleted. Yeah, like resistance it just needs to get gone. All right, my next point is going to be talking about essences. My points with essences are going to be about, or they're pretty much going to go hand in hand with the stats and LIs of this game, and how don't like them, they're boring, would much rather see other shit implemented instead, but whatever. Okay, so like LIs, essences have kind of killed my drive for loot in this game for pretty much the same reason. As LIs, where LIs, you can't get the cool sounding sword, you can't get the cool looking sword. Like, that type of loot just doesn't exist anymore, and it's a shame, right? It's the same thing with essence gear, because, I mean, essence gear is, you don't, like, the stats, there are no stats on the gear anymore. Like, maybe there'll be plus 500 agility, plus 500 vitality, plus 500 mastery, right? And then there'll be like 3 essence slots. It's incredibly boring. The only thing I see with essences when I get a piece or when I get a drop that has essence slots is, oh, okay, so I'm going to need to spend this much LP to get this much universal solvents from the store. Because in order to get essences, there is no way to get them in game. Well, actually, up until recently, the lovely dev, Orion, added a weekly for 1 universal solvent. So, yay, Orion, right? Haha. Um, but yeah, outside of that, they don't drop in the game. If they do drop, I actually do think they drop, but it's a very low drop chance. I don't even think I remember getting one from a mob. So yeah, just very bad. And they're very expensive to craft. So back to the universal solvent thing, right? So you get one per weekly, and how it goes usually for essences is the first tier will cost 1 universal solvent, I think, and then each subsequent tier will cost another. So tier 2 will cost 2, tier 3 will cost 3, I think. I don't think it goes up after 3 though. Could be mistaken, but yeah, so the higher the tier of essence you want, the more you have to fork over to SSG because they don't have a reliable way to get them in game because reasons. Um, so not to mention, you have to do that for every single essence slot and every single piece of gear. Back at 140, we actually didn't have any essences to craft. So, well, actually, I think we had the tier 1, but they didn't update it to add new tiers. So, pretty much they just added essences into like all the loot pools, which, I mean, was a way better way of doing it. Like, personally, as a person playing the content, just getting those essences and not having to worry about crafting them. And honestly, for the alts, like you just passively get them, so when your main's done, you can just kind of stockpile on them and gear your ult really fast with essences. Because let's face it, anything to speed up the ult gearing in this game is a major plus. Like, first of all, you need to get the essence gear, and then you need to craft the essences, right? Like, it's a lot. It's not just about getting gear; it's about getting essences too. Um, so yeah, so essences are just they're boring. Um, don't like just like allies and with just like allies and I guess virtues. There is pretty much minimal talk about it from the devs. The devs have said though that they want to reduce it. I think something with the raid gear. They want to reduce the essence slots. So I mean, we'll see. But reducing it is not getting rid of it completely. So is it really a win? Probably not. All right, now we're moving on to my frustrations with endgame. So the way I'm going to talk about endgame is I'm going to split this into something called modern Lotro, and what I'm describing as modern Lotro is going to be 130 onward, which is pretty much post tier 5 introduction. Well, I guess 120 had it, but not for the raids. But I'm just going to split it into 130 plus. So with 130 came, in my opinion, probably the best expansion that this game has seen, and I'm sure with my qualifications as modern Lotro, most people will agree that 130 was the best expansion compared to 140 and so far 150. Um, so yeah, but I mean this does come with criticism because like it's cool and all, but Lotro, or I mean like 130 did add a lot of content, but it still does not have repeatable PvE content, which I mean it so desperately needs. Like once you get your loot, you're pretty much done. The only incentive to play is really just I mean the incentive for me and I know a lot of other people is like it's going to sound cringe, but when you're doing the content and you want to get a higher parse, right? Like you want to parse higher, especially as a DPSer. Like that's your incentive. So yeah, they We really need added incentive to play the game. Maybe, I don't know, look at WoW, take a few notes, something like that. I don't know. So yeah, 130 was good, but still need some work with something to do once you get gear. Right. So after 130 ended, a lot of people were excited because, I mean, 130 offered a lot of instances. Pretty much every 3-ish to 4-ish months, we were getting instances and new updates, which included new zones at max level that continued a storyline. Right. So we were excited, and then 140 came. Right. Um, 140 came, and it was probably the worst expansion I've ever seen up until Umbar, but we will talk about Umbar later. Um, it the three mans were, I mean, they were terrible. Um, oh, that's right. This was the introduction of LIs. So with 140 came the new LIs, and oh, and also the brawler class. Oh man, the brawler class and LIs coming at once. Those were probably the two biggest things I've hated in this game since they were added. So GG 140. But back to it. So the three mans were bad. The six man was so unbalanced. I mean, I know some groups, maybe most groups. I know we're doing double. They were doing LM and Yellowberg. So it was bad. I know for my group we did. This is gonna sound cringe, but we did double yellow cappy and no healer. Um, but it was good. You cycled your two arms. You had banner, in arms. I think you had SOD back then still. It was good, but obviously instant sucked that you need to do that. And yeah, I mean, at least instances were out, but regardless. And then the raid came, and then the raid was probably the worst raid I've ever played in this game since I started playing this game for its rating and endgame. Uh, between boss 1, 2, and 3, all taking, I mean, on your first clear of tier 5, respectfully taking, I mean, boss 1 was maybe, what, 13 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on your DPSers, like, and debuffers and how good people were. Boss 2 taking almost up until the enrage, which was fine, but I would much rather see a fight that takes 7 minutes and then you hit enrage than, what was it, 22 minutes and then hitting enrage? I mean, it's just 22 minutes fight. Like, that's ridiculous. And then obviously Hermil was, I mean, Hermil wasn't bad, but Shatter, the lingering Shatter was terrible. The puddles were pretty terrible. The corruptions were terrible. The need for 3 healing was terrible. The need for 3 tanks was terrible. The melee unfriendliness, I mean, it was pretty terrible actually. Man, shit was awful. Never mind. Um, but I mean, boss 2, back to boss 2, like, if it wasn't 22 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever the fucking fight was, if it wasn't that long and it was shorter, I don't think people would hate it like they did. I mean, out of all the bosses in that raid, it was probably the best. It had a good tank survivability check. It had good positioning check. Had a good DPS check. I mean, it was good. Besides the 22 minutes. All right, so after HH, right, which was in February 2022 or something. HH ended in, I don't know, end of April, beginning of May, something like that, when the first group killed it. So for the next, I want to say until the next November of 2022, or my bad. So from the end of HH to November of 2022, the only content that was added into the game, there was no end game, there was no instances, it was all low-level zones, which were, I mean, you can guess what I'm going to say. It was fucking terrible, right? Like, nobody likes it. But it was done because we don't know. But it was done. And that was bad. And then November came, and they did their little mini expansion. And they doubled down on it, which wild decision from them, honestly, but they doubled down on the low level zones and they created an expansion solely for the purpose of low level players. They created a new intro with a new tutorial, which, by the way, new tutorial for new players, you have to pay for an expansion. Make it make sense, you know? Uh, so yeah. Um, but it did come with a 6-man, which was SV, which I talked about earlier. So SV was the first two bosses in it were, I mean, atrocious. The last boss was kind of fine. Yeah, nothing really to say about it. And then what also came with this mini expansion was delvings, right? Good old delvings. Um, and yeah, so what came with delvings was pretty much a tiering system from tier 1 to I believe tier 12, which every tier added damage and health to the mobs, and they added new effects and affixes, if you will, if you're familiar with WoW. But the difference between this and WoW is that in WoW you are mostly playing the dungeon and you're not playing the affix. You know, in some cases you are, but whatever. But in Lotro, the delving modifiers are just straight up unfun. They're not outplayable. They are just you launch the delving, you press W, you kill as many mobs as you can before they kill you, and that's it. Rinse and repeat, get it done. As solo, this is obviously terrible. They probably picked the wrong. They probably picked the wrong. I want to say game mode. I guess I don't know. Fucking delving. They picked missions for this, by the way. So missions is landscape content for you all that are not familiar with it, and yeah, it's just landscape content with some modifiers on it. Uh, they probably should have done 3-mans at the very least with this, and just stick to 3-mans because I mean the game has the most 3-mans, right? Like that's where all the content is, or not all the content, but that's where all the bulk of the instances are. Um, but they didn't do that. They did that. They did the missions. I mean, they eventually did 3-mans and 6-mans, but I mean these delving affixes or modifiers, they weren't even balanced for landscape mobs. So I mean you can imagine what they were like in 3-mans and 6-mans with actual mechanics. It's just a clusterfuck. I did it once, never did it again. We'll probably never do it again. And yeah, but so they did add a BIS piece that you needed from it. So you were required to run it. So hopefully they learned from their mistakes with that. In which I mean nobody liked it. They got a lot of positive feedback from people talking about how they don't want to run delvings for BIS loot because well, it's delvings. No one likes it. So yeah. What else? Yeah. I think that's it for. This isn't really it for endgame, but this is it for the endgame portion I'm talking about. All right. Next on the list is Umbar, the expansion of Umbar. So after 140, right? We're hoping Umbar is good. Well, so far Umbar has somehow surpassed Gundabad in being probably the shittiest expansion they've put out. And the reason for this is a few things. Usually on expansion releases, you see, you know, new updates to existing systems, maybe a new system. Well, Umbar didn't offer any of that. We didn't get anything. For example, I guess we were supposed to get a crafting update, but we didn't get that, and we still haven't gotten that. Probably won't be getting that for a few more months now. Who knows? I don't know. Um, yeah. Also, um, so with Umbar, right? New questing, 10 levels. We got to King's Gondor, which is just Gondor again, but King's Gondor. And in this Gondor, you escort the king. Hence the name King's Gondor. And you spend probably 70% of your time in this Gondor and then 30% in all of Umbar. But the level split is about 5 and 5. 5 levels in King's Gondor and 5 in Umbar. But the time spent is drastically more in King's Gondor. And, I mean, uh, it's a lot of Gondor. People don't like Gondor. I don't like Gondor. People are fed up with it. And it leaves a bad taste in your mouth about Umbar. Next point about Umbar. What should that be? Next point is going to be about the obvious, I guess. We have no instances, and it is coming up on 2 months since this expansion is launched. There seems to be no instances in sight yet, which is, pretty worrying because I and I have some other friends that we're not playing the game right now because there's no reason to. And it's going to be hard to get back to playing the game again when the instances come out because, like, once you see other games that deliver pretty much the same experience but better, it's hard to go back. So I'm hoping the instances are good, and I'm hoping they get their shit together because if my group is thinking about not playing, that's pretty bad because we fucking no life the game and we want to play the game, but we just simply can't right now, and it's a bad taste when you want to come back but there's no instances. It's like, okay, well, we're just gonna keep playing this other game. So yeah, they need to fix their shit. And all this expansion has been a complete failure in my opinion. I guess we can talk about the allegiance system in it. Another system that I personally do not like in this game. It was in 130, I believe. 130 was probably its least offensive way or existence. You didn't really interact with it at all, I think, if I remember correctly. And then 140, you kind of interacted with it. It had some pieces of gear, but the instances were coming out the very next week, so you didn't really care about it. Which, I mean, I liked not caring about some stupid ass system that is just a grind, because that's shit. And then 140 allegiances are the grind times 2. There is 2 factions where you have to get rank 30, and who would have guessed it? Each level requires more XP, and each level it seems very, very exponential growth for the XP needed. For example, I quested on alts through Umbar to get the teal boosts for the allegiance accelerators or allegiance rep, and when the level 20 came out, I think I had roughly 50 teal and 150 purples, and I only got one allegiance to 20, and I got the second one to 15, which, that's a ridiculous amount of XP, and it's just, I'm not maxed, and it's ridiculous because That's so much XP. It's like, how do you expect somebody that is playing one character doing, I don't even know what gives allegiance. We're at fucking missions, I think. How do you expect one person doing that? Like, it's a ridiculous grind, and I don't know. It's just not manageable. Game's plagued by these stupid ass fucking barriers. It's disgusting. Um, yeah, Umbar shit. All right, now on to polarizing communities. So this is I'm making this point because as I was pretty much thinking about Umbar and talking about it, um, I just I kept thinking about pretty much all the people that um were not we're not excusing SSG, or what's the word I'm looking for, that um they were holding SSG accountable for this, and then you had a group of the community that just weren't, and they were unironically praising SSG and calling Umbar a massive success, and pretty much ridiculing and shutting down any argument somebody from the opposite side had about why Umbar is a bad expansion and it's inexcusable and they need to be held accountable. So, I'm going to probably split this into casual, and then the other group will probably be called Endgame, and I'll make a third group called Mixed, right? So, Umbar really showed the differences in these communities and why they are really shit and honestly toxic for probably the devs and the community itself, because you have this group that will pretty much accept anything, and it's not good for development because, like, if you're just approving everything and yes manning everything, it's like, how do you get good development done, right? I mean, you have these people, they're saying there's enough content in Umbar. And mind you, this is when it was, I mean, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the expansion, where, let's be honest, a person that plays at a normal pace should be finished with the questing. And we just did not have, I don't even think we had missions yet. I think what the first update brought out was um dailies? No, wait. Are they even dailies? I mean, I don't even remember. I couldn't tell you, honestly. But yeah, I mean, so it's just, you got this yes man group who is just greenlighting everything SSG does and not holding them accountable. And then obviously you have the other group that is holding them accountable, maybe being a bit too much, you know, depends how you view it, I guess. So yeah, uh hopefully hopefully SSG can take good feedback though from both groups, because both groups will provide valuable feedback. I want to make a quick mention of PvP. Um, they need to fucking just either full on delete this fucking mini game in this game already, or just actually support it. It's disgusting. I don't even know what it is anymore. I don't know. It's gross. All right, next is receptiveness to feedback, and this is on the dev's perspective. So, as we all know, feedback is not the dev's strong point at SSG, right? Um, and honestly, I hate to say this, but we've really seen that ever since they started becoming more vocal about what they're doing in the discords, right, and all that, maybe on streams. Um, In some cases we do have a dev who goes above and beyond, goes above, what anyone should expect him to do. And then in other cases we have a dev who really just he just he yaps, he takes feedback, doesn't do anything with it, talks in puzzles. It's weird. I don't know. It's weird. Um, yeah. Uh, Worth noting that there's also some devs who will only take feedback from certain individuals, which I mean is pretty cringe, but it is what it is. Um, Again, some devs are very persistent in their ways, I guess is a word to describe it. For example, when Guardian was getting its like rework thingy, uh, myself and the community was asking for a trait called shield spikes to be either have the trait just give you the shield spike crit chance, so you don't have to fucking eat the consumable every like 30 minutes, or just get rid of it. And yeah, because consumables, I mean, I could make a whole point about consumables, but it's a lost cause, I think, with these devs. So I'm not even gonna make that point. But yeah, he was he didn't remove it. He didn't do anything with it. He kept it the exact same. Actually, he unironically buffed it, so there's even more of an incentive to trade it and get that trait swap before every single fucking fight. So yeah, yep, that's yep. They are not good at feedback. All right, I want to make a little point about something called palantir. Palantir is pretty much the beta for the beta, and has a bunch of people in it, right? It's invite only. It's private. Um, and what I hear from it is that there's nothing good in it that comes out of it, etc. Like, it's just pretty much my point about the yes men, men. That's what I hear about it. Is it's just people. I mean, I'm not in it, so I can't really give like proper feedback on it. This is just like from what I'm hearing. Um, so yeah, it's just I think it's a failed system in my opinion. Like, if people are only in there to like just yes man everything, right? And there's also people in there that are just in there to, get the updates early and then just, report back to their kin, right? And just send them in the kin discourse. Really cringe system. I don't know why they still have it. But they do. They do. On to the next point, we have incentive to play or to make content for this game. This game, once you're done gearing, there is zero reason to play it. There is no repeatable or farmable PvE content in this game. Again, I said earlier, maybe, look at WoW, take some notes from them. Delving's ain't it though, so maybe scrap that idea, and because that's not working. But yeah, they also don't incentivize players to make content, or they don't promote people enough, in my opinion. I mean, I think the latest promotion I've seen from their social medias was an interview with Bloodborne, or Bloodborne interviewing Severlin, I believe. And I think they posted that on their Twitter, and that's like in recent memory that I've seen. I think that's the only thing I've seen. So yeah, they don't really do much. I mean, it'd be great if, let's say, new raid comes out, right? Highest tier, world first team kills it. maybe on their Twitter they post, so and so boss has been defeated. Congrats to this team. Just a little, hey, our new content that we just made and released was killed for the first time on the highest difficulty. Go play it. But there's none of that. And it's a shame because something little like that would truly go a long way. It truly would, but I don't know. Alright, my final point is I think I might have touched on it already, but in case I haven't, I want to talk about it. So, Tier 5 and the tier systems in this game. Personally, I've had several opinions on this throughout the years since it's been released, and I would say from the beginning, I like Tier 5, mostly because it was hard and it did add mechanics, but we've gone 2 raids since the last time it's added mechanics. HH, HH Tier 5, I guess Boss 1 had new mechanics, I guess, and Boss 2 did too, but it's like, they weren't really new mechanics. They're just existing mechanics, but in a different phase. And then, obviously, Final Boss had nothing new. I think Shatter did more damage, but you avoided it anyways, so you didn't really play the fight differently. And then, Gwath, we had Boss 1, which, that's a boss, I guess. Boss 2 was, they could have done more. They could have done something with the ad getting the bubble in Tier 5. Maybe if you don't kill the ad with the bubble, it just explodes and kills the raid. I don't know. But they did nothing on Boss 2. Boss 3, I don't think it did anything either on Tier 5. And then Boss 4, the only difference was Asakal does her fire puddle, which only the tank interacts with, so is it a new mechanic if it's only for, 2 minutes of the fight? I don't know. It's not, in my opinion. But on to the other point about 5 tier systems, and that is loot. We are probably coming up on the 3rd raid cycle where we're going to have no loot in Tier 5, which, it's bad. We have a whole tier that exists, and you do it for a title, or in this case, you do it for a title and you never do it again, or if you're addicted, you keep playing it because there's nothing else to do. And if we see no loot in Tier 5, my opinion will probably change to, let's cut this bullshit out. We need to go do smaller tiers so you guys can actually incentivize players to run it, because it's going to be ridiculous if you release a tier again with no loot. So, hoping there's loot, but it's very likely there won't be because, well, there hasn't been for, 2 years now? I don't even remember. So yeah. So in conclusion, I want to finish, I guess, this rant up by saying Lotro needs a lot of help and work to actually have a game that supports its genre and playstyle, right? So, I'm hoping it eventually gets it, but losing hope, and I know some friends of mine are also losing hope, and some friends of mine are also probably not going to be coming back for this raid cycle, which is a shame because it's kind of the only reason why I play this game. I don't play it for its systems, or really its classes. Or I guess it's classes, but definitely don't play it for its systems. It's not a fun game. It's the friends that makes it fun, and that's pretty much it. So, peace out.